Good evening, this is the news tonight, your daily roundup of all that has happened across India and the world. I'm Ishan Russell and our focus tonight is on the Paris terror attack that has left every city literally in the world feeling vulnerable. We'll be talking about policing and lessons to be learned a little later in the show, but first the headlines we're tracking right now. France launches intensified search for gunmen behind Wednesday's attack on Charlie Hebdo's office as one suspect surrenders. Fresh shooting in Paris suburb today kills a cop. World leaders join in condemning Paris shootout as an attack on freedom of press. Silence observed, mass vigils held in prayer for the victims. Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches out to NRIs to invest in India at the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. Sri Lanka votes in large numbers to elect a new president. Mahinda Rajapaksa faces a tough challenge from opposition in a tightly contested presidential poll. And India fights back against Australia in the fourth test in Sydney. Captain Virat Kohli breaks number of records on his way to his fourth century of the series. Our top story tonight, France has intensified search for the gunman who went on rampage in Paris yesterday. One of the suspects involved in the attack at the Charlie Hebdo office has surrendered. Officials have reportedly located two armed suspects in northern France. Meanwhile, there was another shooting in a Parisian suburb today in which one police officer was shot dead.
Even as France mourns the death of 10 journalists and 2 police officers in the Charlie Hebdo attack, another tense confrontation unfolded in southern Paris suburbs on Thursday morning. A police officer was shot dead in a shootout. Security officials are still investigating if there is any link between the two attacks.
Il va nous rejoindre et va enclencher l'action publique de manière à ce que l'auteur de ce crime soit immédiatement identifié et puisse être arrêté.
2 of the gunmen who went on shooting spree on Wednesday are still on the run. The key suspects, Sharif and Kochi, reportedly robbed a service station in northern France. They stole food and fired shots. Later on, they drove off in a car, apparently the same vehicle that they hijacked in Paris soon after the attack. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls said that the suspect could strike again. The third suspect surrendered to the police today. Police have also detained a few people in connection with the case.
Demonstrate a perfect cool mood, a perfect calm for all the operation, and they killed at least 12 people and wounded 10 others in just 1 or 2 minutes. So that tells us that they are clearly well-trained people.
French President François Hollande addressed the nation saying that the message of freedom of those killed in Paris Charlie Hebdo shootings would live on.
Que ce message de la liberté, nous continuerons à le défendre en leur nom. Ce lâche attentat a également tué 2 policiers. Ceux-là même qui étaient chargés de protéger Charlie Hebdo.
Paris has been placed on the highest terror alert with extra troops being deployed to guard media offices, places of worship, transport and other sensitive areas. Vigils were held through the night in Paris in tribute to the dead. Several demonstrations were held in solidarity with the victims. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And world leaders paid rich tributes to the victims of the terror attack in Paris yesterday. Several countries, especially in Europe, observed silence, held mass vigils a day after the attack targeted the French satirical publication. Security has been stepped up in European countries since the attack took place. Terming it an attack on the freedom of press, world leaders condemned the mass shooting in one word. The Prime Minister and External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj were among the leaders to express solidarity with France in the hours of mourning.
It was a horrendous, unjustifiable and cold-blooded crime. This is a moment for solidarity around the world. We must stand strong for freedom of expression and tolerance and stand against the forces of division.
The fact that this was an attack on journalists, an attack on our free press, also underscores the degree to which these terrorists fear freedom of speech and freedom of the press.
We must never allow the values that we hold dear of democracy, of freedom of speech to be damaged by these terrorists.
In denen wir zusammenleben in Europa. Wir verurteilen das. Unsere Gedanken sind bei den Menschen in Frankreich, insbesondere bei denen, die heute Opfer zu beklagen haben. Wir stehen zu den unverbrüchlichen Werten von Pressefreiheit, von Freiheit, von Demokratie.
テロは報道機関へのテロであり、言論の自由、そして報道の自由に対するテロであり、断じて許すことはできないと思います。
The world, we are all shocked. Our leadership has condemned this incident in no uncertain terms. The Prime Minister immediately condemned it as a dastardly incident.
All right, so almost every city now in the world is feeling vulnerable. We've seen what's happened in Paris. There was an incident in Sydney, Australia. So how safe are our cities over here in India? T.R. Kakkar, former Delhi Police Commissioner, joins us live from the national capital. Thank you very much for coming in, sir. But I mean, to police against such attacks must be a nightmare. Are we really prepared, for example, in our major cities in India?
Policing indeed is becoming very difficult, particularly against such premeditated targeting. In the case of Paris also, it has been a premeditated targeting because this particular paper has been criticized by the Islamist fundamentalists. They have also been threatening them that they will take revenge of whatever they have been doing. I do not know why a proper threat perception of the this particular paper and the people working in that office was not made. It is no doubt that this has been a premeditated one, and they could choose their time and they could choose their days and all that, anything. But only if they had proper guards at the entrance who were heavily armed, perhaps this so much of collateral damage could have been avoided. But anyway, having said that, as you very rightly said, practically every city today is can be targeted, because targeting is not very difficult for those who are fedines, who have no respect for their own life, and they have no respect for the life of others. Yet the proper assessment will have to be made for anybody and any place where people feel that where these people feel, the fedines feel that some injustice is being done to them or to their religion. So at such places we have to. This is one, is the shooting. The other is of course the explosions like it happened in Bangalore.
Yes.
Now Bangalore one was, it is a small little thing that has happened, but that could happen anywhere else. There is no doubt that a lot of precautions will have to be taken by people in every city.
Mr. Kakkar, but the other fear, the flip side of the argument often given is that those precautions that will be taken means more mass surveillance perhaps. I mean, we're already looking at CCTV cameras almost everywhere across major cities, but in terms of mass surveillance, does it mean that as far as the individual rights are concerned, but does it somewhere impinge upon that? Could that be a direction this conversation could head in?
You see, it is always, you see, most of the governments and most of the forces, what they do is that after the incident has taken place, so much of deployment takes place all over. But it is before, just to avoid the incident, if adequate precautions are taken, perhaps incident. Now for an example, in Delhi you will find a large number of vulnerable spots are being guarded. Perhaps this was not being done in Paris. If they had properly guarded, things would not have been so difficult. In any case, also you see the footage. The car is there, car is right in the middle of the road for 5-6 minutes, the car is there, nobody is challenging it, nobody is asking anything, and then they get into the car and drive away, and in the meantime they also kill a policeman outside. Now all this, perhaps people did not come forward as it happens anywhere else. Even in Paris, people did not come forward to chase these people or to identify them or do something else. This can happen, but I think in Delhi and in Indian cities, wherever we have vulnerable places, we have been guarding them adequately, and that is why perhaps so far we are feeling safe.
All right, we'll leave it over there. That it was that we are feeling safe for now, but and I hope that our police forces are up to the mark and have adequate support as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Kakkar, for coming in.
A lot needs to be done. A lot needs to be done more. A lot more needs to be done.
A lot more needs to be done, yes, in terms of, upgrades for the police, certainly, in terms of just policing. Thanks you very much, Mr. Kakkar, for coming in and explaining to us the nuances of policing, literally, because that's become imperative. On your screens right now, let's just take you through a few visuals that have come in to us through the day, right from the scenes that were observed as far as the morning is concerned. A minute silence was observed across the world. There you could see people coming out in large numbers and protesting. Also, the suspects have been identified and their pictures have also been released. In fact, they've been traced to the north of France as per the latest reports, but still are waiting to be apprehended. Moving on now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi reached out to India's expatriate community, terming them precious capital with an inherent emotional link to the motherland. Modi formally inaugurated the 13th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas conclave today, stressing on the importance of this bond of love to transform India.
Shubham karote kalyanam.
The Indian diaspora's link to the motherland has been the focus of Prime Minister Modi's speeches in his visits overseas since he became Prime Minister. As he inaugurated the 13th Pravasi Bharatiya Divas conclave in Gandhinagar, a gathering of over 4,000 delegates, Modi elaborated on the potential of this relationship.
विश्व भर में फैला हुआ जो हिंदुस्तानी नागरिक है, वो आज के वैश्विक परिवेश में भारत की बहुत बड़ी ताकत है, बहुत बड़ी पूंजी है, और इस पर हम जितना ध्यान देंगे, हम आसानी से विश्व फलक पर अपनी जगह बना सकते हैं.
In the last few months, the government has cleared lifetime visas for people of Indian origin, visa on arrival facilities, and electronic travel authorization. At the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas conclave, Modi urged Indians abroad to take active part in economic and environmental development in India, assuring them of massive potential waiting to be tapped.
आपका ज्ञान, बुद्धि, सामर्थ्य जो कुछ भी हो, इसके साथ जुड़िए. इस महान सांस्कृतिक विरासत से विश्व को परिचित कराइए, और जिस मंत्र को लेकर के हमारे पूर्वजों ने विश्व की कल्पना की थी, हम ही तो लोग थे जिन्होंने सबसे पहले विश्वास से कहा था, वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, whole world is family.
This year's event marks 100 years of the return of Mahatma Gandhi to India from South Africa, after which he launched the freedom struggle. A new 100 rupee coin and stamp were launched. A slew of government measures look to evolve that to the development perspective. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, time for a very quick break right now, but coming up on the other side, the Delhi police rubbishes report of putting pressure on Shashi Tharoor in the Sunanda Pushkar case. More on that after the break. Welcome back. You're watching the news tonight. Now, the Delhi Police Commissioner today clarified that no legal notice has been issued to Congress MP Shashi Tharoor in connection with his wife Sunanda Pushkar's death. This completely overturns earlier reports that Tharoor had been served a notice to join the probe. The Delhi Police Chief said the investigation is underway and all evidence is being examined. The Delhi Police had registered murder cases against unknown men following the final medical report from AIIMS, concluding that Sunanda Pushkar died due to poisoning. An SIT has been formed to probe the case. Tharoor, who is undergoing treatment in Kerala, has kept away from the media.
Elaborate process. तो इसमें जो है मतलब ये मिनट टू मिनट हम इसमें आपको शायद जानकारी ना दे पाए. जब भी कोई ऐसी बात होगी जो आपके लिए रेलेवेंट होगी तो उसके बारे में मैं आपको अपने आप जानकारी दे दूंगा। बाकी अभी कुछ एक स्पेकुलेशन चल रहा था कि क्या नोटिस इशू कर दिया गया है, इसके बारे में मुझे ये जानकारी देनी है। अभी फिलहाल जो मेरी जानकारी है अभी नोटिस नहीं दिया है।
The Border Security Force today foiled yet another bid by Pakistani militants to infiltrate into Jammu and Kashmir under the cover of firing from Pakistan. A brief clash between the two sides also took place in Kathua district. This is the fifth infiltration attempt in a week by the militants. Union Minister Jitendra Singh assured that India will continue to give a befitting reply to such attacks. He also said an implementation plan would be formulated to set up bunkers along the international border for the people displaced due to the firing. Singh paid a visit to the border migrant camps to take a stock of the situation over there. People who fled their homes near the international border due to Pakistani firing and shelling in the Hiranagar sector have been putting up in these camps.
They believe that the hostility from across the borders is being given the befitting reply from Indian side, which they had waited for many years to come. And they are all feeling gratified to the central government led by Narendra Bhai Modi. At the same time, we have also tried to provide all kind of relief and all kind of resettlement provisions.
Now, intense cold and dense fog continues to hamper normal life in much of North India. In fact, services of at least 35 flights and close to 50 trains were affected due to poor visibility this morning. Dipping mercury in the region has intensified cold conditions in most places, with Kargil recording the season's lowest at -16 degrees.
A thick blanket of dense fog over Delhi and surrounding regions continued to affect rail and air traffic badly on Thursday. Early morning fog disrupted rail services, with the operations of 42 northbound trains getting affected. 35 flights were also affected due to adverse weather conditions. Delhi recorded its minimum temperature at 7.2 degrees Celsius, a notch above Wednesday's 6.4 degrees.
मैं कलकत्ता जा रहा हूँ, दिल्ली कलकत्ता एयर इंडिया की फ्लाइट से, लेकिन 1.5 घंटा लेट चल रहा है फॉग के कारण।
हमारी ट्रेन सर 6:30 बजे थी, लेकिन अभी तक ट्रेन का कोई अता पता नहीं है। ठंड से बेहाल हैं लोग और हम लोग मजबूर हैं प्लेटफॉर्म के बाहर सोने के लिए, और कोहरा इतना ज्यादा है कि 10 फुट दूर का आदमी भी समझ में नहीं आ रहा है।
But it was business as usual at places flocked by tourists. Fresh snowfall has attracted more footsteps in places like Kufri, much to the liking of those in tourism business.
या कोई घोड़े वाला है या ये स्कीइंग वाला है, ट्यूब स्लाइड करवाने वाले हैं, सबको बहुत अच्छा बिजनेस मिला। यहाँ पे हर तरह से कारोबार में यहाँ पर वृद्धि हुई है। हर साल की तरह नहीं कि मतलब बर्फ जल्दी गिरने से बहुत फायदा हुआ है।
Cold wave continued to prevail in Punjab and Haryana as well. Ludhiana was the coldest place in the region with a minimum temperature of 2.3 degrees Celsius. Amritsar recorded the second lowest minimum at 2.4 degrees Celsius. Chandigarh's low settled at 4.9 degrees. In Rajasthan, mercury plummeted sharply at several places in the state. Churu on the plains recorded the lowest temperature in the state at 2 degrees Celsius. In Jammu and Kashmir, Kargil registered the coldest night of the season so far at -16.6 degrees Celsius. Capital Srinagar recorded the minimum temperature of -4.2 degrees Celsius. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Now let's look at all the other national news we are tracking in nationwide. Indian markets today rebounded from 3-week lows, with the Sensex jumping 366 points to 27,274 and the Nifty climbing 133 points to 8,234 on heavy buying in blue chips amid strong global cues. Encouraging US data, hopes of fresh Eurozone stimulus after inflation turned negative and slight recovery in crude oil prices boosted the general sentiment. Coal India trade unions today assured the government that they will try to make up for the loss in production of about 1 million tons on account of the workers' strike, which was called off yesterday. Coal workers had called off their 5-day nationwide strike last night after 2 days following government intervention. A national investigation agency team, besides police officials and civil administration of Sonitpur district in Assam, visited areas affected in the carnage carried out by militants of the National Democratic Front of Bodoland. They met families of the victims. The NIA Director General also held discussions with Chief Minister Tarun Gogoi and senior police officials. Retired IPS officer Krishnakant Paul has been sworn in as the 6th governor of Uttarakhand today. Senior Justice of Uttarakhand High Court V.K. Bisht administered the oath of office and secrecy. Paul has won a number of medals during his illustrious career as a policeman and later served as the governor of Meghalaya, Nagaland, Manipur and Mizoram. Mumbai metro fares will go up from tomorrow after the Bombay High Court today gave the go-ahead to Reliance Infrastructure-led Mumbai Metro 1 Private Limited. A fare in the range of 10 to 40 rupees will be charged for the Versova-Andheri Ghatkopar route. And senior Indian diplomat Atul Khare has been named by UN Chief Ban Ki-moon as the head of the World Body's Department of Field Support. His job will be to provide dedicated support to peacekeeping missions around the world. This makes Atul Khare one of the highest-ranking Indian officials in the UN. A statement by the UN said that Khare brings to the position strategic management and innovative reform expertise in both headquarters and field perspective. Currently providing charitable medical advice in India, Khare has had a long career with the United Nations. He last served as the Assistant General Secretary General, leading the change management team. Now, Sri Lanka voted today in a tightly fought presidential election where incumbent President Mahinda Rajapaksa is facing an unexpected challenge from his former health minister, Maithripala Sirisena. Rajapaksa is seeking a third term despite his waning popularity since the government's victory over ethnic Tamil separatists in 2009. The result is expected tomorrow.
Large number of people queued up at several polling stations in Sri Lanka as the nation voted to choose a new president on Thursday. The election is taking place 2 years before schedule after incumbent President Mahinda Rajapaksa called for snap polls. He is facing a tough challenge from New Democratic Front candidate Maithripala Sirisena. The two are among 17 candidates in fray for the polls. More than 1.5 crore Sri Lankans are eligible to cast their votes in these elections.
We should move together somehow or other to even make the people who feel they have lost the war to feel they are part of it.
Law, order and justice. That's it.
Rajapaksa won around 58% of the vote in the last election, surfing a wave of popularity that sprang from the 2009 defeat of Tamil Tiger separatists. Although his popularity has waned, he remains confident that the perennial fractured opposition would fail to find a credible challenger. However, Sirisena feels he has the edge over Rajapaksa.
එවගේ මේක අපි අති විශිෂ්ට ජයග්‍රහණයක් ලබනවා. අපේ ජයග්‍රහණය අති විශිෂ්ට වෙන්නේ පරාජිතයාට වඩාත් හොඳට සලකන එකයි. ඒක තමයි මම විශ්වාස කරන්නේ.
රට සහ ජනතාව වෙනුවෙන් අපේ මාතෘ භූමිය වෙනුවෙන් විශාල වගකීමක් ඉසිලීමට මේ රටේ අති බහුතරයක් ජනතාව මම දන්නවා විශ්වාස කරනවා. මා වෙත හංසයා ලකුණට ඡන්දේ පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ස්ථිරවම අපි ජයග්‍රහණය කරනවා. හිංසාවෙන් තොරව හිතාමත්ම කාරුණික සෙනෙහබර වූ දේශයක් ගොඩනැගීමයි බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ.
I am confident that the people will return Maithripala Sirisena as the president to make the changes that we desire.
With more than 25,000 local and about 70 foreign monitors set to observe the vote, the elections have been by and large peaceful. The result of the poll will be announced on Friday. Bureau Report, Sabha TV.
Well, a day after the crucial tailpiece of the crashed Air Asia flight was located, divers are now battling the strong waves and bad weather to reach the submerged tail section in hopes to find the black box. Cause of the crash still remains a mystery. Meanwhile, Air Asia announced $125,000 compensation to the families of the 162 passengers on board the ill-fated flight.
Fully equipped search teams are battling strong currents and poor visibility to lift the tailpiece of the crashed Air Asia plane. They hope to find a crucial black box holding key to what really happened in the last moments of the flight 12 days after it crashed into Java Sea with all 162 people on board. So far, search teams have not been able to redetect the signal which was received from the tail section on Wednesday.
Karena itu menjadi hal yang substansial, di dalamnya ada black box. Itu yang ingin saya sampaikan. Nanti Panglima Armabar akan laporan kepada saya rencana detailnya.
Even if the black boxes are found, it might take weeks to decipher the data from the flight recorders. To make it worse, the Indonesian Navy diver who identified the tail section of the crash jet says it was split and was found flat on the seabed.
Dari hasil geosurvey itu 26 meter, tinggi kurang lebih 4 meter, lebar 3,7. Cuman pesawat sudah terbelah, jadi dari hasil geosurvey itu sudah...
To download the data, it's depend on the condition of the black box. If it's in a good condition, maybe in 2 or 3 days we can retrieve the data. But if it's seriously damaged, it could take up to 2 weeks.
Indonesian officials are still investigating the unauthorized flight schedule of AirAsia. AirAsia officials said that they will provide $1 lakh in compensation for each passenger on the plane. That's in addition to $24,000 already offered to victims' families. Only 40 bodies have been recovered so far, with officials suggesting that most of the remaining bodies could be still trapped inside the plane's fuselage. 24 out of those have been identified. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, some sports now, and India's new Test captain Virat Kohli led his team's fight back, chasing a mammoth first innings total set by Australia in the final Test at the Sydney Cricket Ground today. At stumps on day 3, India reached 342 for 5, still 260 runs behind the hosts. Virat Kohli scored his 4th century of the series today. He also broke a few records during the course of his knock. Kohli became the only cricketer ever to have scored a century each in his first 3 innings as captain of a side. He also became the highest Indian run getter in a Test series in Australia with 639 from 7 innings in this series. He has now surpassed Rahul Dravid's score of 619 runs from 8 innings in the 2003-2004 tour. Lokesh Rahul also scored his maiden Test ton. The opener partnered Kohli to steer India to a respectable position at the end of the day. And all the other sports news in Sportsbeat. Indian tennis veteran Mahesh Bhupati, teaming up with compatriot Saket Maineni, won a hard-fought doubles pre-quarterfinal match to set up a clash with his former partner Leander Paes at the ATP Chennai Open. Bhupati and Maineni got better off Sood brothers Chandril and Lakshit to win the match 6-7, 6-4. Elise Cornet and Benoit Paire of France clinched the mixed doubles deciding rubber to pull off a 2-1 conquest of Australia at the Hopman Cup on Wednesday. Earlier, Cornet overcame a shaky start to get the better of the Australia's Casey Deraqua 6-4-6, 7-5, 6-1 in the women's singles rubber. LA Galaxy have signed English midfielder Steven Gerrard as designated player. Gerrard is scheduled to join the Galaxy's roster during the Major League Soccer's summer transfer window in July, following Liverpool's season in England's Barclays Premier League. Gerrard joins the Galaxy following one of the most storied careers in Liverpool and English football history. Atletico Madrid continued their fine record against their local rivals by beating Real Madrid 2-0 in the first leg of their Copa del Rey last 16 tie at the Vicente Calderón. Atletico went ahead thanks to Raúl Garcia's penalty just before the hour mark. The hosts then doubled their lead with their defender Jose Jimenez headed in a Gavi corner with 14 minutes remaining. Well, that's the news tonight. Good night.
Thank you.